Hi everyone, Vega here. In today's video, as promised, I did say that if the nearest stars talk that we had about a month ago now was successful, then we'd do another video continuing along the list. And on this video, it's going to be a bit more of a surprise video for me because a lot of the stars I briefly encountered or looked at. So it may be that there's new information. So it's quite a voyage of a discovery, if you like, for us all, me included on this one. So let's have a look at the list of nearest stars and brown dwarfs. And if you remember, we left off last video at Sirius, so we did the first quite a few stars there. So moving down the list, now we're up to 8.724 light years, and we're at the Luyten 726 8 red dwarf binary pairing. That now, unfortunately, they're both flare stars, and as you can see here with the M5.5 and M6 designation, they're quite on the smaller side of the red dwarfs, although not only marginally so, in the constellation of Ceti. And it was actually, I thought it was really interesting. If you remember, if you've seen this video here, the Epsilon Eridani one, the Luyten system and Epsilon Eridani are actually due to not hit each other by any means, but they're both approaching each other quite quickly, and I can't remember exactly when. Let me check. Yeah, here we are in approximately 31,500 years. There is a close encounter. So if there are life inhabiting either system, it's going to get quite a rough ride for the next let's say 50,000 years at least, as the two systems approach each other. So that's the Luyten 726 system. Next one to Ross 154, which is, by the looks of it, a larger, slightly larger red dwarf at M3.5 designation. We're moving up towards 10 light years away now. Let's have a quick look at Ross 154 in the constellation of Sagittarius, one of the nearest to the Sun. And it says that Ross 154, typically the star will increase 3 to 4 magnitudes during a flare. So again, UV type flare star, so perhaps not much chance of habitable worlds in orbit around Ross 154. HH Andromeda, I like that name, also known as Ross 248. Now we're actually over 10 kilometers. 10 light years, I should say, not kilometers, obviously. And another flare star, this time slightly smaller, red dwarf designation. Let's have a quick look at Ross 248. A small star, approximately 10.3 light years from Earth, in the constellation of Andromeda. That's quite interesting there, isn't it? It was too dim to be included in the Hipparcos survey, but in about 40,000 years, Voyager 2 will pass within 1.7 light years from the star. So the question that occurs in my mind is, if Ross 248 was 1.7 light years away, how bright would it be in the skies of Voyager 2? Let's have a look. I'm using this great app here, the luminosity calculator. Perhaps I'll link it in the description below in case you want to have a go yourselves. But let's put Ross 248 into the luminosity calculator. So it's got a radius of 0.19 solar radii with a temperature of 2930 Kelvin, and it's given us a luminosity of 0.002, which is, that looks pretty bright, doesn't it? And we're talking about 1.7 light years, so this, again, remember, will be from the Voyager probe. Is that what it's come out with? 4.88. So yeah, Voyager. If Voyager 2 was a person, which it isn't, it would be able to see it with a naked eye. So that's quite interesting. Voyager 2 will have a companion to light up its skies, not particularly brightly, but over the next 80,000 years or so. And also, it's also predicted to be the nearest star to the Sun for around 9,000 years, overtaking Alpha Centauri. Just 9,000 years. That's quite a short period, isn't it? So actually, it's quite going to play a certain role in our next 10 to 100,000 years of human future. Okay, that's Ross 248 now. Epsilon Eridani is a great star. I personally think it possibly is one of the first, if not even the very first, that will colonise. Epsilon Eridani is quite a large K-dwarf, which is literally perfect for life. It's more stable than the Sun, lasts longer, and again, don't forget to watch the actual video we've done on Epsilon Eridani. I've forgotten some of the details about it now, but it does have. It's the one with age year, isn't it? There's actually also a video on age year, so you can watch a lot of videos on Epsilon Eridani that we've looked at. Age year is, of course, a super Jupiter, which is way too far out, as you can see there from Epsilon Eridani. It's already a smaller star than the Sun. And at 3.5 astronomical units, it's going to be a really cold, probably colder than Jupiter even, age year. Again, check out the video where I go into a bit more detail. But again, there may be more planets inside of that planet there, and it also seems to have an asteroid belt as well, which is quite interesting, isn't it? So very, very colonisable there, Epsilon Eridani, one of the most colonisable stars in our local area. That's interesting, isn't it? The picture there. Let's zoom in on that one. Presumably this is the star in the middle here, and obviously perhaps this is the asteroid belt, I'm assuming. Maybe this is age year here. It seems quite unlikely that they've directly photographed age year, but short of any other explanation, I can't imagine what it could be. Again, check out the video on Epsilon Eridani. It's great, very interesting star. Lacaille 9352, not too sure about this one. This is 10.72 astronomical units, and it's quite an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's an M5 0.5 main sequence red dwarf. So it's quite a powerful one actually. It'd be interesting. Presumably it's a flare star, although it's almost a K-dwarf really. It's somewhere in between the two. In the southern hemisphere, then Pisces, Austrinus. It's almost bright enough to be seen with the naked eye, isn't it? Lacaille 9352. It says here it's too faint to be viewed with the naked eye, except possibly under excellent seeing conditions. I mean, bear in mind it's almost a K-dwarf, so we are talking about a red dwarf, but only just. Physical diameter of 47% of the Sun's radius and a mass of half the Sun, so it is a relatively large red dwarf again, and it does seem to have a planetary system. It might be worth doing an extra video on that at some point in the future. This looks quite interesting. I don't think I've come across it before. Lalande 21185 is the one that I've looked at in more detail, but not Lacaille 9352. Let's have a look at these planets. So we have Jovian 4.0, a super Earth. That looks probably a bit too close into the star, doesn't it? 0.06 AU to be habitable. Then we have planet C, which actually has its own page. A super Earth with a minimum mass of 7.6 Earth masses. It's close to the inner edge of the habitable zone, but still outside, with an equilibrium temperature of 79 degrees Celsius. So, I mean, I don't know about anyone else, but 79 degrees Celsius doesn't seem out of the question for habitability to me. Presumably, if the planet is a super Earth, it's quite capable of holding on to an atmosphere, I would have thought. And although it's hotter than the Earth would be, it's certainly going to have some areas, particularly around the poles or perhaps at the top of high mountains, where the temperature is going to drop well below 79 degrees Celsius, assuming there's not a runaway greenhouse effect, of course, which could be possible. I also find it strange that we seem to find a lot of planets that are like way closer in. I mean, look at that one, 0.06, 0.12 astronomical, is way closer in than Mercury. And it does make me wonder what's actually going on here, because I don't know how many stars have close-in planets like that, but often the red dwarfs do tend to seem to have that. I mean, perhaps something really strange happened in our solar system, and this is the norm, or perhaps we just really are a really odd system. I don't know. It's it is a question that keeps popping up in my mind the more I see about exoplanets. And just while we're on this as well, planet D, another super Earth there, which is again nothing like the size of Neptune, but nowhere near the size of Earth anymore as well. So they are planets that we don't really have ourselves. That one's a bit further out, isn't it? Perhaps that one might be inside the habitable zone of Lacaille 9352. But obviously the planet itself is going to be very unusual, but it could have perhaps many moons, even an Earth-sized moon that would be habitable, which is often what we talk about on this channel, isn't it? The possibility of not necessarily looking for exo-Earths, but looking for exo-Jupiters, and then assuming that they'll have planets in orbit around them, moons in orbit around them. So let's move on then. So we're on to Ross 128, and I've actually recently done a video on Ross 128 that's 11 light years from us, a reasonably medium-sized red dwarf. It is unfortunately a flare star, but the planet is quite an interesting one, Ross 128b, and we've done a video on this, so I won't tell you too much about it other than that it's just inside, if I remember rightly, just inside the habitable zone. And there are some quite interesting videos of it that I found actually for the original video as well. So there's Ross 128, but again I won't go into too much detail because we have our own video on Ross 128. EZ Aquarii, I'll be honest, I don't know much about this star at all. Obviously it's in Aquarius, and it's interesting, it's a 3-star system, isn't it, with one known red dwarf of medium size and then another extra couple that they're not perhaps sure about the designation. A and B are flare stars, so that's quite an interesting system, isn't it? Three body triple star system there. Let's see what information there are about it. The pair EZ Aquarii IAC, so the larger one and the smaller one, are a spectroscopic binary, so the main pairings I imagine would be the case, are very close together, and they share a 823-day orbit with B, so presumably EZ Aquarii B is somewhere around the Martian orbit if they were in our system. So you've got two red dwarfs, and then as you see, let's have a look at that picture there. The two here, which are very close together, and then the other one, which is roughly at the equivalent orbit of Mars, I would say roughly, but it could be a little bit further actually at 832 days for its well, I suppose it's a year if it's in orbit, isn't it? Again, they don't seem to have designations for B and C. Likely a type. All they know is that it's probably a red dwarf. They don't really know much more. Doesn't say that much else. It's quite an interesting system, isn't it? Might be worth a video at some point. These Aquarii. And let's do one more for now. 61 Cygni. Now, if I remember rightly, these are two K-type dwarfs. This is a really interesting system, this one, a binary K-dwarf system. So we've got a medium-sized K-dwarf and a slightly on the small side K-dwarf. Let's see how far apart they are, shall we? They orbit each other with a period of about 659 years, so plenty of distance then between the two stars. And both visible with the naked eye, barely, certainly not where I am in Spain, but in rural areas with light pollution you might be able to pick up 61 Cygni. You'll have to look at constellation of Cygni, and actually where are they on here? Deneb obviously is the obvious star in Cygnus. Doesn't show us where 61 Cygni is. Hopefully I'll edit this in on the video. Do they have any known planetary systems? That's quite interesting in the comparison between the two stars there, the two K-dwarfs and our sun. This does look like a very, very interesting system to me. There's the orbits as seen from Earth, so this is how we see them. Isn't that interesting when you're looking at things from a different angle? Obviously the geometrics completely changes, doesn't it? Claims of a planetary system. It doesn't say any any known planets. It would seem such a shame, wouldn't it, if this system didn't have planets. You've got two really habitable stars, separated by quite a long distance, so they're not going to really disturb each other's planetary bodies. Wouldn't that be amazing? You could, once the system, if it had intelligent life, presumably both stars would have planets that could become habitable, and they wouldn't be that far from each other, close enough that if, you know, with our current technologies, we could certainly visit. Anyway, I think we'll wrap up the video there. Again, if this video is successful, we can... Oh, blimey, I've just realised that I've perhaps missed the most interesting star of all in this section is, of course, Procyon. How could I do that? I've skipped from Eses Aquarii on 61 Cygni. Well, there we are. I don't think we need to talk that much about Procyon. There's a couple of videos here that you can look at in much detail. Procyon's a really interesting star as well. But in a third edition of this series, we could move further on, and we really are getting to some very, very strange places. Another binary red dwarf Struve 2398. I'll be honest, I've never ever heard of that system before, or if I have, I can't remember it. Groombridge I definitely have heard of. DX Cancri is another one. Epsilon Indi. That's quite an interesting system on it. It's got a couple of brown dwarfs there. And then, of course, the glorious Tau Ceti, which is, I think, one of everybody's favourite stars, really. And if the video goes well, we could even perhaps carry on to Luyten Star and Tea Gardens and Captain Stars, which all three are very interesting places as well. And to be honest, we can just carry on forever with this. Look at these stars as we go out. They just become more and more random, basically. One that I certainly want to look at some point is Alsafi, or I prefer the name Sigma Draconis. It just sounds really interesting because it's I think after Tau Ceti is the nearest G-type star to our sun, which doesn't really get a look in, really. We talk quite a lot about Tau Ceti, but Alsafi is never really mentioned. So we'll wrap the video up there. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Take really good care of yourselves and look after your friends and family as well. And I'll see you on the next one.